Have you ever watched a horse and rider perform a complicated movement and wondered how the horse was taught to do that? The piaffe and the canter pirouette are dressage's two most complex movements, combining the greatest number of basic responses together into one movement. How do they do it? The answer is, the trainer used a training scale. Do you want better results, easier troubleshooting, and confidence in your training? I'm about to show you the best training scale currently in existence. For hundreds of years, the greatest trainers of all time have developed training scales. It's essentially a plan of training priorities, from simplest to hardest, that build on each other, so the horse's education progresses logically from easier tasks to harder tasks. Anyone teaching anyone else anything knows that you have to start with the basics, and move on to more advanced concepts that build on the basics. It's the same with horses. When a horse is trained by a trainer who knows and uses a training scale, the trained end result is more predictable and more reliable than a horse not trained with a training scale. Along the journey, the trainer can have more confidence in the process, knowing it has worked before, and they have a leg up on troubleshooting, as the scale defines what the horse should know at each stage, making it much easier to pinpoint where the miscommunication is. If you want those better results, easier troubleshooting, and confidence in training, here is the best training scale that is available today. As I mentioned, there are several different training scales. Not all are created equal. Most are based on only one trainer's personal experience, which, while very helpful, is not perhaps as accurate as a scale based on scientific research and inquiry performed by many trainers and following the scientific method. The training scale put out by Equitation Science International is the only such scale in existence, and I consider it to be the best available one. Notice they call it a shaping scale. Shaping is one of the first principles of equitation science, and explains how a complex behavior is most effectively learned by an animal, by breaking it down into pieces and molding, or shaping, the simpler behaviors into the final product, step by step. Some tips for using the scale effectively. When planning a training session, start at the top of the scale by thinking of the final product that you are looking for. Dream a little. What would make the behavior perfect? Having the end goal in mind makes it easier to work backwards through the scale to break the behavior into logical, piece-by-piece steps. Then, when you go to your horse and start training, start with the bottom of the scale and train each piece in order. When you encounter a glitch in your training, or your horse seems to have forgotten or not understand, go back to obedience level. That second rung of the shaping scale ladder is usually the one at fault. Retraining that step thoroughly will often send you miles ahead of where you were before the hiccup happened. Although it is tempting to skip steps, because every equestrian's favorite line of the scale is contact, where the horse starts looking pretty, don't do it. Go through each one at a time, in order, and ignore the people telling you the horse isn't doing it properly or using himself right. No, he isn't. Not yet. Because the shaping isn't complete. Follow the process, and the end result will come faster and be more reliable than if you tried to skip right to the end. Let's go through the shaping scale using the Spanish walk as our example. In basic attempt, the horse just has to give it a go. Here I'm tapping Tesla's left front leg, and she is shifting her weight to be able to pick it up. At first, I will even reward the weight shift if the horse does not immediately offer picking up the foot, but most do. If I don't get any try from the horse, I won't be able to move on to the next level, obedience, and lighten the cue while increasing the response. At obedience level, she has figured out that when I tap, she is to lift the leg. She lifts it immediately now and higher than before. Both legs have been trained to obedience level, so I now have one stride of Spanish walk-ish movement. If she doesn't respond to a light cue at this stage, I won't be able to teach multiple strides in the next level rhythm. Adding combined reinforcement is particularly helpful at this level of the scale, and reduces the failure of obedience. Now, I don't want to have to keep asking for every step that I get, so rhythm comes next. She can hold up each leg for longer, and I count to make sure I am training both sides evenly. Now the legs move more rhythmically, one then the other, with the hind legs following in a normal walk sequence for multiple strides at a time. Without a rhythm of multiple strides, I won't be able to train the equal stride length required for straightness. A vocal cue added at the end of obedience or beginning of rhythm stage will be picked up quickly. A vocal cue added too early tends to not compute in the horse's brain until later. Now, along with my multiple strides, legs held up for longer, I am making sure my stride lengths are even. Both legs must reach an equal distance for Tesla's body to remain straight. Without straightness, her body posture will never reach contact level. At this stage, I will experiment with standing in a different position and see if I can still maintain previous criteria. Now I am training head and back leg position while maintaining previous criteria for the front legs. I want the neck higher, but with back legs coming under more so she doesn't hollow her outline. This stage most often happens organically if the previous stages are trained thoroughly, but some tweaks can be made to posture quite easily now that everything else is easy for the horse. Lastly, I'll make sure all previous criteria work properly in new contexts. A new context could be a different arena or part of the farm, but it could also be a new position from me, like riding instead of being on the ground. Notice how my previous criteria have diminished in this clip. To achieve proof, one typically has to train through all previous criteria again in the new context. However, training goes much faster as the foundation is already laid and reliable. The sky is the limit for what complex behaviors, and simple ones too, you can train when you have mastered use of the training scale. What's one thing you would love to teach your horse to do? Let me know in the comments.